People talk about rock bottom as if it only happens to the young, as if growing older gives you immunity to heartbreak, betrayal, or humiliation. They're wrong. My rock bottom came the night my own son looked at me, metaphorically, and saw a wallet instead of a father. The clock on my nightstand glowed 11:47 p.m. when the phone rang. At that hour, calls only mean two things: birth or death. I answered on the second ring. "Dad!" Brandon's voice trembled, desperate, breathless. "Dad, I need your help. It's Sarah." I sat upright before he even finished the sentence. "What happened?" "They found something. A mass. The doctor says she needs emergency surgery Monday morning." His voice cracked. "Dad, they want $85,000 up front. If we don't pay, she might not make it." My heart dropped. Sarah, my daughter-in-law of 12 years, was the last person in this world who deserved suffering. She taught second grade. She baked cookies on Christmas Eve for her students. She volunteered at animal shelters. She hugged people with both arms. A good woman in every sense. Where is she now? I asked, already reaching for my glasses. "At home," he said quickly. "They gave her pain medication and sent her home until Monday." That was the first red flag. Emergency mass. Life or death condition. And they sent her home? What kind of mass? I asked, "Where is it located? Who's the surgeon?" "It's complicated," he snapped. "Something in her abdomen." "Dad, this is not the time to interrogate me. Her surgeon is Dr. Michelle Carter at Portland General Hospital, room 314. Surgery Monday, 7 a.m. Please, Dad, I've got $15,000 saved. We need $70,000 more. You're the only one who can save her." I rubbed the bridge of my nose. He wasn't wrong. I was the only one. His older sister lived paycheck to paycheck. His younger brother was still in school. And Brandon hadn't been the easiest son. He had borrowed $23,000 in 2022 to expand his insurance business. Then $31,000 in 2023 for car repairs. Promised to repay every cent. Never repaid a dollar. But this wasn't about the past. This wasn't about him. This was about Sarah. "If she truly needs surgery," I said slowly, "I'll do whatever it takes. Let me make a few calls first. I'll see what strings I can pull." I could hear him exhale with relief. "I knew you'd understand, Dad. Thank you. Thank you." When the call ended, I didn't sleep. I just sat there alone in the dark, phone in my lap, a creeping feeling crawling up my spine. Something was wrong. My instincts, the same instincts that kept me alive through 29 years of medical practice, the same instincts that helped me detect lies in tear-filled emergency room stories, whispered the truth before I had evidence. But evidence soon arrived. 20 minutes later, a text. Dr. Michelle Carter, Portland General Hospital, room 314. Surgery Monday, 7 a.m. A perfectly packaged detail sheet. Too perfect. Saturday, the investigation begins. You learn strange things when you get older. For example, you learn that betrayal often hides behind urgency, and urgency often hides behind numbers. $85,000. Not $84,900. Not $86,000. A spotless, cinematic, round number. I brewed coffee and stared out the kitchen window while it percolated. The same window where my late wife, Margaret, used to hum while watching the sunrise. She died 5 years ago, and in the months after, Brandon had been close, painfully close, until the money request began. But grief makes fools of us all. I told myself lending him money would keep our bond alive. Turns out, I was feeding a wolf and hoping it would act like a dog. I took my cup to the table and dialed the hospital. Portland General Radiology How may I help you? Good morning. I'm trying to confirm an upcoming surgery for my daughter-in-law under Dr. Michelle Carter. Room 314. A pause. We don't have a Dr. Michelle Carter on staff. My fingers tightened around the mug. Maybe she's new or on temporary assignment. No, sir. I've been here 8 years. No surgeon with that name has ever worked here. A vein pounded in my neck. One more thing. Do you have room 314? We don't number our rooms like that, sir. Our surgery wards start with 2. I thanked her and hung up. Lie number 1. Lie number 2 came 5 minutes later, when I called the front desk. No patient named Sarah, last name, checked in this week or this month. Lie number 3 arrived when I searched Facebook and saw Sarah smiling, holding a bag of Honeycrisp apples at a farmer's market. Posted 1 hour before the phone call. Healthy, energetic, happy, not bedridden, not medicated, not near death. The world tilted. My son was not struggling. He was not desperate. He was not watching his wife die. He was executing a scam. And he thought I would fall for it like before. But here's the part he forgot. I may not have his youth. I may not have his sharp jawline or his polished suits. But I have something far more dangerous. Experience, memory, and patience sharpened by grief. People my son's age play checkers. People my age play chess, with years instead of minutes. I stare at the blank kitchen wall and whisper to myself, Brandon, you just declared war on the wrong man. Because if Brandon had only stolen money from me, maybe I would have forgiven him. If he had only lied to me, maybe we could talk. But using Sarah, an innocent woman, as bait, weaponizing my love for family, no father worth the title lets that go unanswered. I set down my coffee and picked up a notebook, my old medical investigation notebook, and wrote a title at the top of the page, Operation Sunday. Below it, I wrote the first objective. Find out how deep the lie goes and who else is involved. What happened over the next 48 hours would tear apart every illusion I ever had about my son, and it would expose a network far darker than a fake hospital drip. By Monday morning, my son would lose his wife, his house, his freedom, and, most painfully, his children. And I wouldn't lift a fist. I wouldn't shout. I wouldn't threaten. I would let the truth do all the damage. Because sometimes the most loving thing a father can do is burn down the prison his son built, even if his son is still inside. Some people think betrayal happens in one single moment. A knife in the back, a slammed door, a shouted insult. But betrayal is slower than that. It's a rut, a soft knock inside the walls long before the house collapses. By Sunday morning, I could hear the knocking loud and clear. I spent 3 hours combing through Portland General Hospital's website, cross-checking their cardiac surgery team, interventional surgeons, general surgeons, and resident rusters. No Michelle Carter. I wasn't satisfied. I needed a human voice to confirm it, even though a part of me already knew the truth. I dialed the main number. Good morning, Portland General Hospital. Good morning, I said, sounding calmer than I felt. I'm calling to verify a surgery scheduled for tomorrow with Dr. Michelle Carter, patient Sarah Whitman. A long stretch of hold music, violins, pianos, a mockery of calm. When the operator returned, her voice was gentle, the kind reserved for delivering bad news. Sir, we don't have a surgery scheduled for Sarah Whitman tomorrow, and we don't have a Dr. Michelle Carter on our surgical staff. Blood drained from my face. Could you double-check room 314? I asked, grasping for even the smallest chance I was wrong. Another pause. Room 314 is in our pediatric ward. It isn't used for surgeries. I thanked her with a voice that didn't sound like mine. I'd spent 40 years in medicine. I'd testified in insurance claims. I'd smelled lies disguised as tragedies. I'd held the hands of people who would do anything to make their financial problems disappear. But never, not once, had I imagined my own son would weaponize his wife's health to extort me. Still, I needed absolute certainty before taking a step I couldn't reverse. So I dialed Sarah directly. "Hi, Dr. Whitman." She answered, cheerful, upbeat. "How are you doing?" "I'm well. Just checking in. Brandon mentioned you weren't feeling well." "Me?" She laughed. "I feel great. We went to that new farmer's market yesterday. Brandon ate so many samples I thought he'd burst." "Why? Why did Brandon say I was sick?" My throat tightened. That must have been a misunderstanding. "I'm glad you're okay. Take care of yourself." "You sound worried. Are you sure everything's all right?" "I'm fine, Sarah." I hung up before my voice cracked. No surgery. No illness. No Dr. Carter. The entire story, from beginning to end, had been synthetic, manufactured, scripted. And now one question burned a hole in my mind. Why $85,000? Not 5, not 50, exactly 85. I needed information, not guesses, not intuition. So I called someone who always spoke in numbers. Jim Ellis, senior manager at First Pacific Bank, my account advisor for 15 years. "George," he greeted me warmly. "Good to hear from you. What can I do for you?" "I need your help privately," I said. If someone requested a wire transfer of $85,000 on short notice, what might that indicate? Jim went quiet, analytical gears turning. "That's an unusually specific figure," he said at last. "It could be a down payment on property, settling a high-interest private loan. Or—" He hesitated. "Gambling losses. Large private games often demand settlement within 48 hours. My chest tightened. Gambling. It explained the sudden burst of luxury on Brandon's social media. The restaurants, the weekend trips, the designer suits, the watches, the self-congratulatory photos of business success. He hadn't been successful. He'd been winning, until he started losing. I opened my laptop, typed Brandon Whitman Portland into the search bar. What I found wasn't illegal, not yet, but it was damning. Photos of Brandon and his business associates standing in what looked like the VIP room of the Cascade Ridge Casino. A birthday tag of Velocity Poker Club, a private invitation-only gambling lounge, a men's retreat at Silvercrest Resort, a known hotspot for high-stakes underground poker, all dated within the last year. Meanwhile, I was paying for car repairs. I kept digging. Public records, business filings, property searches, county databases. I didn't expect to find anything. I didn't expect a father to have to investigate his own son. But there it was, in black and white. Crystal Heights luxury apartments, lease agreement. Resident, Brandon Whitman. Unit, 2B. Monthly rent, $4,200. Lease start, March 3rd, 2024. A second home, an expensive second home. While Sarah packed lunches in Tupperware for work, Brandon was paying $4,200 a month for a secret apartment. There's a moment when a father stops hoping. For me, that moment came sitting in my car outside Crystal Heights. I stared at the building for over an hour. It was beautiful, modern steel and glass, rooftop garden, private gym, valet parking. Not a single family lived there. This wasn't a place for building a future. It was a place for hiding a life. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. If I turned the key and drove home, I could stay ignorant. I could pretend my son had a reason. I could keep loving him without conditions. But real love, the hard kind, isn't blind. So I dialed the leasing office. Crystal Heights Leasing. This is Jennifer. How may I help you? Hi, Jennifer, I said, forcing my voice steady. I'm calling regarding Unit 2B. Oh, yes. Beautiful unit. Vaulted ceilings, wraparound balcony. I just had a quick question. My son, Brandon Whitman, is listed as a tenant, correct? She tapped her keyboard lightly. Yes, that's correct. Is he the sole occupant? A silence long enough to measure. Sir, I'm not allowed to disclose. I cut her off, my voice breaking for the first time in 48 hours. Please, I'm not asking for a name. I just need to know if someone else lives there. Sympathy replaced protocol in her voice. Yes, he isn't listed as living alone. The world didn't fall apart. It simply stopped. I leaned back in the driver's seat, the phone slipping from my hand, landing somewhere on the floor. Secret apartment. Hidden tenant. $85,000 demand. Gambling debts. My son wasn't asking me to save Sarah's life. He was asking me to save his double life. And the worst part? He looked me dead in the eyes and decided I was stupid enough to fund it. I wiped my face with my sleeve. I hadn't even realized I was crying, and whispered aloud, You don't know it yet, Brandon, but I just stopped being your safety net. Because now I knew what I was fighting. Not ignorance, not desperation, not bad luck, entropy, greed, and deception refined into habit. This wasn't about $85,000 anymore. It was about a man who believed family was a resource, not a bond. And if he wanted a war, he'd get one. But not with fists, not with threats, not with raised voices. With truth, documentation, evidence, and silence. The kind of justice a liar can't scream his way out of. I turned the ignition, pulled out of the parking lot, and wrote 4 words into my notebook. Phase 2, exposure begins. Some moments change a family forever. Not with shouting, not with fists, but with truth spoken out loud and recorded. I never wanted evidence against my own son. I never wanted to build a case. But when a man tries to steal through love, love becomes dangerous. That Monday night, at 8:33 p.m., my phone rang, just as Detective Murphy predicted. Dad, Brandon said, breath-sharp, panicked. I need an answer. The hospital needs a transfer tonight or Sarah loses her surgery slot. I pressed a button that silently started the recorder. Oregon law, one-party consent, meant every word was legal evidence. Brandon, I said calmly, I need to ask you something. A beat of silence. What? I called Portland General Hospital. Nothing but breathing on the other end, shallow, uneven. There's no Dr. Michelle Carter. No scheduled surgery for Sarah Whitman. Room 314 is in the pediatric ward. The silence stretched for 28 seconds, long enough to count every mistake he'd made. When Brandon finally spoke, his voice wasn't desperate anymore. It was cornered. Dad, I can explain. I'm sure you can, I replied. I called Sarah yesterday. She's fine. She bought apples. She has no idea she's supposedly having surgery tomorrow. His voice cracked. Dad, please, you don't understand. I'm in trouble. Real trouble. I need this money. What kind of trouble? I made some bad investments, and gambling debts, I said. He sucked in a sharp breath. How did you? $140,000 at Thunder Bay Casino. Debt sold to loan sharks charging 18% interest monthly. Want me to continue? I heard him slump down, the sound of chair legs scraping the floor. Dad, they're going to hurt me. Maybe hurt Sarah too if I don't pay something big this week. I swallowed hard. Rage and heartbreak tasted the same. So, your solution was to lie about your wife having emergency surgery. It wasn't cancer, he said defensively. I never said cancer, just a mass that needed removal. The distinction sounded almost comical if it hadn't been tragic. Brandon, I said softly, I've been a doctor for 40 years. I've held patients' hands before surgeries that would decide whether they lived or died. And you used that trust. You weaponized it. I wasn't stealing, he insisted. I was going to pay you back. With what? I asked. You owe more than you make in 3 years. He said nothing. You're paying for an apartment for your mistress, I continued. Crystal Heights, Unit 2B, $4,200 a month. And that's just the beginning. Dad, Ashley isn't. It's not what you think. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. $4, $200 rent. Her credit cards, in your name. Her Mercedes lease, in your name. All while you're married to Sarah. The recorder was catching every word. The timeline, the financial trail, the admissions. Brandon said nothing for a long time. Then, I love Sarah. I never wanted her hurt. I almost laughed, but sorrow won. You're 2 months away from foreclosure because you haven't paid your mortgage. You've maxed every credit card. You've borrowed against your life insurance. You owe money to people who break bones to collect debts. He was breathing fast now, terrified, but not remorseful. Dad, this is my only way out. I just need the $85,000. Once I pay them, I'll dig myself out. I swear. Please, you're my father. There it was. Not love, not guilt, not family. Access. I pictured Sarah, laughing in a grocery aisle, helping a child tie a shoelace, planning birthday surprise party for a husband who was paying for another woman's loft on the other side of town. She deserved to know. But this moment was for Brandon and me. Brandon, I said, voice barely above a whisper, you didn't come to me as a son asking for help. You came as a criminal looking for a mark. He snapped. I'm your kid. You owe me. After everything I've been through, you can't give me one thing I asked for? You'd rather watch my family fall apart than give me what I need. There it was. The real Brandon. Not the frightened man, the entitled one. You're just a broke, bitter old man who cares more about money than your own family. I didn't respond. The silence dragged on until he couldn't bear it. Dad, please. I'm scared. I don't know what to do. They are coming after me. I need you. I don't have anyone else. And that was the worst part. He meant it, because he'd burned every bridge else first, counting on me to be waiting at the end, the unconditional safety net. But I had one last truth for him. Brandon, I said quietly, I love you, but I won't fund your destruction, and I won't let you destroy anyone else. His voice turned sharp again. You think you're helping? You're ruining MY life. No, I replied, my voice steady. You ruined your life. I'm just stopping you from ruining Sarah's too. I ended the call. The recording stopped. The file saved. Evidence documented. I stared at the phone for a long time, not because I was uncertain, but because certainty hurts in ways doubt never does. A son begging for love is painful. A son demanding money disguised as love is fatal. That night I sat at the dining table, the same table where Brandon blew out candles with icing on his cheeks when he was 7, and labeled a new file folder. Whitman case, evidence. Inside, I placed printed bank statements, social media screenshots, the Crystal Heights lease, photos of Ashley Reed, a USB drive with a recorded call. I shut the folder and whispered, not to punish him, but because I refused to lie to myself anymore. If you want to rebuild your life, you're going to have to do it from rock bottom. Because sometimes the only way to save someone from the fire is to let their world burn, so they learn never to play with matches again. And this was only the beginning. Next came the people who gave Brandon the money in the first place, the men who never stopped collecting. And they weren't going to sit quietly while their investment slipped away. Some people think heartbreak is loud, screaming matches, slammed doors, broken dishes. But real heartbreak is quiet, quiet enough to hear a soul crack. When Sarah heard her husband's recorded confession, there was no explosion, no yelling, no cursing. Just silence, the kind that fills a room when someone realizes their life has been a lie. Brandon's voice played through the speaker. I thought, if I could just get enough to buy time. $85,000 buys 2, maybe 3 months. Then everything would be fine. Sarah's hands never left her lap. She didn't interrupt, didn't wipe her tears, didn't ask for a pause. Then came the worst line. At least this way, Sarah doesn't have to know. When the recording ended at 47 minutes, 12 seconds, Sarah exhaled like she'd been holding her breath the entire time. So instead of being honest with me about destroying our finances, she said, voice barely audible, he faked my medical emergency. I nodded. He panicked, she said next, as though reciting his offense. He said he panicked. I didn't respond. She needed to walk through the shock herself. Suddenly she snapped, not in anger, but clarity. $85,000 would have bought him 2 months. She repeated his words exactly. He would have come back again. He would have lied again. He would have told another story, maybe something even darker. Her voice cracked. Would he have faked my death next? George? A funeral? A charity donation? A college fund in my memory? How far would he have gone? There was no answer that wouldn't hurt her, so I gave her the truth. Addiction doesn't stop when it gets what it wants. It stops when it hits something harder than itself. Sarah closed her eyes. She wasn't crying anymore. She was calculating, the way a woman does when survival suddenly matters more than love. I continued gently. You don't deserve to wake up every morning wondering whether your life is real. She moved to the window again, staring at the backyard. Her daughter's pink bike leaned against the fence. Her son's soccer ball sat in the grass. Normal life, built on a foundation of quicksand. When did it start? She whispered. 2 years ago. I said, small bets at first, then one big win. And after that, the chase. And Ashley, her voice sharpened. 8 months. He met her at the casino. She laughed, a sound that wasn't laughter at all. I was planning our 13th anniversary trip, and he was planning a second life. The pain wasn't in her eyes anymore. It was in her posture, the way she suddenly sat straight, shoulders back, spine locked. It was a posture of someone who had stopped drowning and started swimming. What happens now? She asked. That, I said, is your decision. She sat quietly, thinking. Will they take the house? She finally said. If Brandon stays in control of the finances, yes. Foreclosure proceedings will happen within months. And the kids? Her voice faltered for the first time. Sarah, I said, you need to protect them, financially and emotionally. Right now, everything Brandon touches bones. She nodded, absorbing every word like a triage nurse processing disaster scene. Then came the question I knew was coming. Should I divorce him? I didn't answer immediately. This wasn't a doctor and patient conversation. It was a conversation between two people whose lives had been collateral damage to the same person. I don't want to tell you what to do, I said carefully. But I'll say this. Children learn what love is by watching their parents. If they see that love means lying, debt, secrets, and betrayal, they may choose partners who hurt them the same way. Sarah shut her eyes, absorbing the blow. And then, I don't think I can stay married to someone I need to protect myself from. It wasn't rage. It was resolve. She looked up again. When will you tell Brandon that I know? I placed my phone on the table, the same phone that recorded the confession. Not yet, I said. Her brow creased. If Brandon knows we uncovered everything, he'll panic. The man he owes money to will panic. Someone desperate enough to falsify a medical emergency is desperate enough to do anything. She swallowed. So what's the plan? That was the moment Sarah stopped being a victim and became something stronger. The safest plan, I said, is documentation accuracy, and timing. What do you need from me? I need you to act normal for now. Don't confront him yet. Pack important documents, birth certificates, school records, medical files, passports, things he could use to control you later. She nodded. Next, I need you to open a personal bank account he doesn't know about. Today. What about the kids? Move their school pickup and drop-off rights so only you can authorize changes. If he tries to run or hide from debt collectors, he might take them. She froze, terror flashing in her eyes. George, do you really think he'd do that? I think Brandon is drowning, and drowning people don't think about who they pull under. She stood, hands trembling, not from fear this time, but adrenaline. I'll do it. Her voice was firm. A woman preparing for war, not revenge, but survival. She grabbed her purse and keys. I'll handle the paperwork. What will you do? Start Phase 3. She paused at the doorway. What's Phase 3? I took a long breath. Separating Brandon from everything he uses to hurt people, money, secrets, and control. She nodded once, not as a wife, but as a mother whose world now had a mission. As she stepped outside, she turned back. George! Yes. Thank you for telling me the truth. It hurts, but it's real, and I would rather live in pain than in a lie. Then she drove away. I watched her car disappear down the street, and for the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't expected. Relief, because Brandon wasn't the only one who had to face consequences. I had enabled him. I had shielded him. I had funded the destruction of his own life. Protecting him out of love was not love, it was surrender. Not anymore. By sunset, the evidence file was complete. By nightfall, Sarah was legally and financially protected. And by morning, Brandon was going to discover that the people he thought he could manipulate, his father and his wife, were no longer standing between him and the consequences he created. There's a moment in every tragedy when the audience wants to yell at the stage, "Stop before it gets worse." But the actor can't hear them, because fate has already tied his hands. For my son, that moment was the afternoon he showed up at my door. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, eyes sunken, beard patchy, shirt wrinkled, desperation pouring off him like heat. "Dad, we need to talk," he said. "I think we said everything last night. Please, just give me 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I opened the door that used to be his home. He sat on the couch, the same one where he once played video games until midnight, where he used to lay with Sarah's head on his chest watching movies, where he told me he wanted to be a father. Now he sat there as a stranger. "I talked to Sarah this morning," he said, voice hollow. "I figured you would. She's leaving me, taking the kids to her sister's place. She won't even discuss it. Can you blame her?" His jaw tightened. "Dad, you know I screwed up. I lied about the surgery. I lied about Ashley. I lied about the gambling. But you don't understand the pressure I'm under. Pressure you created." He snapped. "The loan sharks. Dad, they're not bluffing. They told me exactly what happens if I don't pay something by Friday. What does that have to do with me?" His composure broke. "I need that money. Not the full $85,000, just something. Something to buy time. Something to keep my family safe. By lying and stealing. By keeping them alive." I studied his face, not the words, not the fear, but the truth behind them. "If you're really trying to protect Sarah and the kids, you have options," I said. "You can go to the police. You can file bankruptcy. You can check yourself into addiction treatment. You can work a second job and repay your debts." Brandon laughed, a humorless, painful laugh. "Years, Dad. That would take years. I don't have years. But you'd have your integrity." He looked at me with something close to pity. "My integrity disappeared the first time I doubled down on a losing hand trying to win back my losses. My integrity disappeared when I started lying to Sarah. What I have left is a family, and you're letting them fall apart because you won't help." "No," I said quietly. "You let them fall apart when you chose gambling over marriage." His eyes reddened. "Do you really think I want to be this person?" No addict wants to be an addict, but every addict wants to be rescued. He swallowed hard. I need you to rescue me. One last time. I swear I'll get better after that. I took a breath that felt like lifting a house. Brandon, last night's call was recorded. He froze. What? Oregon is a one-party consent state. I am legally allowed to record conversations without informing you, and I recorded your entire confession, every detail. He shot up from the couch like he'd been stabbed. You can't use that against me. I'm your son. And you attempted to steal from me by faking your wife's medical emergency. That's different. How? Because I'm desperate. Because I'm drowning. I threw you ropes in 2022, in 2023, but instead of climbing out, you dug deeper. You didn't want help, Brandon. You wanted financing. His expression changed. Not sorrow, not guilt, calculation. So what now? He said bitterly. You take the recording to the police? Send your own son to prison. I haven't decided. He stepped closer, eyes hard. What would it take for you to delete it? Everyone has a price. What's yours, Dad? I didn't yell, didn't cry, didn't move. Get out, I said. He dropped to his knees. Please, just tell me what you want. I'll do anything. I want the boy I raised back, but that person is gone. Brandon stared at me for a long, burning moment. Then he stood. You're making a mistake. You think you're teaching me a lesson, but you're just destroying our family. No, I'm refusing to let addiction destroy everyone else with you. He paused at the door. When Sarah and the kids are living in a one-bedroom apartment because we lost everything, remember you could have prevented it. Then he left. After the door shut, I sat alone, not triumphant, not righteous, just tired. Sometimes, in medicine, saving a life requires a cut so deep it leaves scars forever. But the alternative is letting infection spread until there's nothing left to save. I opened my phone. Detective Murphy, I said when he answered. We need to move forward. Warning sign has the escalation no one expected. The next morning, consequences arrived ahead of schedule. Detective Murphy called at 7:30 a.m. Dr. Whitman, we need to talk. Can you come to the station this morning? Has something happened? Let's just say your son's situation is more complicated than we thought. I arrived an hour later. Detective Murphy was waiting with a man in a dark suit. Dr. Whitman, this is Agent Carl Anderson, FBI, Financial Crimes Division. FBI, this wasn't domestic fraud anymore. Agent Anderson shook my hand firmly. Doctor, Detective Murphy shared the recording you made with your son. I need to tell you something directly, confidentially. I braced myself. We've been investigating Thunder Bay Casino for months. It's a front, part of a much larger organized criminal operation involving loan sharking and money laundering. My blood ran cold. Are you saying Brandon is involved in organized crime? We're saying he's in deeper than you know. Murphy slid a folder across the table. We ran a deeper background check after your call yesterday. Your son's gambling debt is not just debt. It's a recruitment pipeline. When gamblers can't pay, they're forced into schemes, identity theft, fraudulent credit applications, laundering money through fake businesses. I felt the air leave my lungs. Agent Anderson continued. Your son is extremely close to the threshold where people like him stop being customers and start being employees. When that happens, people get trapped for life. I closed my eyes. Brandon didn't just owe money. He was on the edge of becoming a criminal asset. Agent Anderson leaned forward. Doctor, I'm not asking you to let your son fall. I'm asking you to help us stop him before there's no coming back. If he commits even one job for this group, he'll be facing federal charges that carry decades, not years. There it was. The real turning point. The question wasn't whether Brandon would face consequences. It was which consequences. Prison or crime. And whichever direction he fell next, I was a tipping point. I had known that cutting out a tumor would hurt. I just didn't realize the tumor was growing faster than I thought. Agent Anderson folded his hands. Dr. Whitman, you're the only person Brandon will listen to, and we're going to need your help. I didn't answer right away, because helping my son now wasn't about giving him money. It was about deciding what kind of man he would be when the dust settled. A prisoner, or a criminal. Either way, there was no painless ending. For him, or for me. The phone call I've been dreading and expecting came on Thursday morning. Dr. Whitman, this is Agent Anderson. We've made the arrest. Even knowing it was coming, the words hit me like I'd been punched. How did it go? I asked peacefully. He was taken into custody at his office. No resistance. Did he say anything? He asked to call you. He'll get his phone call in about an hour. I wanted to give you warning. I thanked him and hung up. For the next 75 minutes, I sat in my kitchen staring at my hands, feeling every year of my age. At 11:15 a.m., the phone rang. Dad. Brandon's voice wasn't angry, manipulative, or desperate, just defeated. I'm here, I said. They're saying I'm part of some organized crime ring, that Ashley was running scams, and I knew about it. Were you? A long silence followed. A real one, not strategic. I knew something wasn't right about her business. But I didn't ask questions because I needed her to keep generating income. Income from defrauding elderly people. His voice broke. I told myself it might be legitimate marketing or something. But, yeah, I knew. There was no excuse, no justification, just truth. And it was worse than any lie. Dad, I need to ask you something. What? When you made that recording, did you know it would lead to this? No. I thought it would just be evidence about the fake medical emergency, not all of this. He hesitated. But if you had known, would you still have done it? I didn't rush my answer. Yes. He inhaled sharply, the kind of breath someone takes when a wound hits bone, even knowing it would destroy my life. Brandon, you destroyed your own life. I just documented it. He didn't argue. For the first time, he didn't try to twist the truth. I keep thinking about what you said about cutting out infected tissue. What about it? Am I the infected tissue? The pain in his voice carved straight through me. You made choices that infected our family. Yes, but whether you're curable depends on what you do next. He swallowed. The prosecutor wants me to cooperate. Names, locations, cash flow. They say I can get 5 to 7 years instead of 20 to life if I help. What do you know? More than I want to admit. Names. Drop sites. Shell companies. Which cops are dirty. Cops. Yeah, this goes deep, Dad. Deep enough that I stopped sleeping at night a long time ago. There was no version of reality where I could protect him from this. Are you to cooperate? I asked. I don't know. If I do, I'm a snitch in federal prison. If I don't, I lose decade with my family. What does your lawyer say? He says I'll never see my kids again if I don't. What do you want me to say, Brandon? He answered honestly, for the first time in a very long time. I want you to tell me what you would do. I thought of all the elderly people who had been targeted. Lonely seniors, widowed grandparents, people who still believed in love, manipulated until they emptied their savings. People like my late wife's father. People like many of my retired patients. People like me. I would cooperate, I said finally, even if it scared me, even if it cost me everything. Another long silence. You really think I'm that far gone, he whispered, that I need to risk my life to make up for what I did? I think you need to decide who you want to be from now on. The man who protects criminals to protect himself, or the man who protects victims, even when it costs him something. His voice cracked. If I cooperate, will you bring the kids to visit me sometimes? That's not my decision anymore. It's Sarah's. But you won't try to poison them against me? I'll tell them the truth when they're old enough to understand it. Nothing more. Nothing less. When the call ended, I sat in silence, wondering how I would explain their father to my grandchildren someday. Balance scale, cooperation, and consequences. The next morning, Agent Anderson called. Your son has agreed to cooperate fully. His information has already led to 3 additional arrests. More are coming. He's in protective custody while he helps us build cases against the others. And Ashley Reed? I asked. Arrested. She was actually the ringleader of the romance scams. Your son was one of the men she manipulated and used financially. The irony struck with surgical precision. Brandon thought he was using her, but he was just another tool in her system. That afternoon, I visited the Crystal Heights complex. Police tape everywhere. Evidence boxes stacked on the sidewalk. Detectives cataloging devices and paperwork. Jennifer, the leasing agent, giving statements to reporters. So many lives in those walls. Some guilty, some innocent, some trapped in between. That evening, Sarah called. Brandon's lawyer wants to know if I'll bring the kids to see him before sentencing. What do you think? I think my kids deserve better than their last memory of their father being behind glass in an orange jumpsuit. She paused. But I also think they deserve goodbye. What are you considering? A phone call. Supervised. Just so they hear his voice. Do you want me there? Yes. So that night, we sat together in her sister's living room. Emma, 7, clutched a stuffed rabbit. Jacob, 12, stood stiff, trying to be a man before his time. Daddy, Emma whispered. Hi, baby. Hi, Emma. Is Jacob there? I'm here, Jacob said, guarded hurt. Brandon spoke gently. I want you both to know that Daddy loves you very much, and I'm going to be away for a while. How long? Emma asked. He hesitated, looked to Sarah for guidance. She shook her head. A long time, sweetheart. Are you sick? She asked. No. I made some very bad choices, and now I have to face the consequences. What kind of bad choices? Jacob demanded. I lied to people. I took money that wasn't mine. I hurt our family. Did you hurt Mommy? Jacob pressed. Yes, I hurt Mommy very badly. Are you sorry? We all held our breath. Yes, I'm sorry for everything. Sorry enough to fix it? Jacob asked. I can't fix the past, but I'm trying to stop anyone else from getting hurt. Are you a good guy now? Emma whispered. I'm trying to be. And for the first time since this nightmare began, Brandon cried, not from fear, but from shame. When the call ended, Emma curled into Sarah's lap. Mommy, is Daddy ever really coming back? Sarah held her close. I don't know, baby, but even if he doesn't, we're going to be okay. Jacob came to me. Grandpa, did you know he was bad before? I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know he was involved with criminals. Are you mad at him? I'm disappointed in him, and I'm sad for the people he hurt. He swallowed. Are you mad at us? Because we're his kids. I knelt to his eye level. You and Emma are not responsible for your father's choices, and I love you exactly the same as I always have. He nodded, not convinced, but trying to believe. Endero 3 weeks later. Final update. Agent Anderson called again. Doctor, we need to meet. There's been a development. At the station, he introduced me to Assistant U.S. Attorney Rebecca Martinez. Some people think betrayal happens in one single moment. A knife in the back, a slammed door, a shouted insult. But betrayal is slower than that. It's a rut, a soft knock inside the walls long before the house collapses. By Sunday morning, I could hear the knocking loud and clear. I spent 3 hours combing through Portland General Hospital's website, cross-checking their cardiac surgery team, interventional surgeons, general surgeons, and resident rosters. No Michelle Carter. I wasn't satisfied. I needed a human voice to confirm it, even though a part of me already knew the truth. I dialed the main number. "Good morning, Portland General Hospital." "Good morning," I said, sounding calmer than I felt. "I'm calling to verify a surgery schedule for tomorrow with Dr. Michelle Carter, patient Sarah Whitman." A long stretch of hold music, violins, pianos, a mockery of calm. When the operator returned, her voice was gentle, the kind reserved for delivering bad news. "Sir, we don't have a surgery scheduled for Sarah Whitman tomorrow, and we don't have a Dr. Michelle Carter on our surgical staff." Blood drained from my face. "Could you double-check room 314? I asked, grasping for even the smallest chance I was wrong. Another pause. "Room 314 is in our pediatric ward. It isn't used for surgeries." I thanked her with a voice that didn't sound like mine. I'd spent 40 years in medicine. I'd testified in insurance claims. I'd smelled lies disguised as tragedies. I'd held the hands of people who would do anything to make their financial problems disappear. But never, not once, had I imagined my own son would weaponize his wife's health to extort me. Still, I needed absolute certainty before taking a step I couldn't reverse. So I dialed Sarah directly. "Hi, Dr. Whitman." She answered, cheerful, upbeat. "How are you doing?" "I'm well. Just checking in. Brandon mentioned you weren't feeling well." "Me?" She laughed. "I feel great. We went to that new farmer's market yesterday. Brandon ate so many samples I thought he'd burst." "Why? Why did Brandon say I was sick?" My throat tightened. That must have been a misunderstanding. "I'm glad you're okay. Take care of yourself. You sound worried. Are you sure everything's all right?" "I'm fine, Sarah." I hung up before my voice cracked. No surgery. No illness. No Dr. Carter. The entire story, from beginning to end, had been synthetic, manufactured, scripted, and now one question burned a hole in my mind. Why $85,000? Not 5, not 50, exactly 85. I needed information, not guesses, not intuition. So I called someone who always spoke in numbers. Jim Ellis, senior manager at First Pacific Bank, my account advisor for 15 years. "George," he greeted me warmly. "Good to hear from you. What can I do for you?" "I need your help privately," I said. If someone requested a wire transfer of $85,000 on short notice, what might that indicate? Jim went quiet, analytical gears turning. "That's an unusually specific figure," he said at last. "It could be a down payment on property, settling a high-interest private loan. Or—" He hesitated. "Gambling losses. Large private games often demand settlement within 48 hours. My chest tightened. Gambling. It explained the sudden burst of luxury on Brandon's social media. The restaurants, the weekend trips, the designer suits, the watches, the self-congratulatory photos of business success. He hadn't been successful. He'd been winning, until he started losing. I opened my laptop, typed Brandon Whitman Portland into the search bar. What I found wasn't illegal, not yet, but it was damning. Photos of Brandon and his business associates standing in what looked like the VIP room of the Cascade Ridge Casino. A birthday tag to Velocity Poker Club, a private invitation-only gambling lounge, a men's retreat at Silvercrest Resort, a known hotspot for high-stakes underground poker, all dated within the last year. Meanwhile, I was paying for car repairs. I kept digging. Public records, business filings, property searches, county databases. I didn't expect to find anything. I didn't expect a father to have to investigate his own son. But there it was, in black and white. Crystal Heights luxury apartments, lease agreement. Resident, Brandon Whitman. Unit, 2B. Monthly rent, $4,200. Lease start, March 3rd, 2024. A second home, an expensive second home. While Sarah packed lunches in Tupperware for work, Brandon was paying $4,200 a month for a secret apartment. There's a moment when a father stops hoping. For me, that moment came sitting in my car outside Crystal Heights. I stared at the building for over an hour. It was beautiful, modern steel and glass, rooftop garden, private gym, valet parking. Not a single family lived there. This wasn't a place for building a future. It was a place for hiding a life. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. If I turned the key and drove home, I could stay ignorant. I could pretend my son had a reason. I could keep loving him without conditions. But real love, the hard kind, isn't blind. So I dialed the leasing office. Crystal Heights Leasing. This is Jennifer. How may I help you? Hi, Jennifer, I said, forcing my voice steady. I'm calling regarding Unit 2B. Oh, yes. Beautiful unit. Vaulted ceilings, wraparound balcony. I just had a quick question. My son, Brandon Whitman, is listed as a tenant, correct? She tapped her keyboard lightly. Yes, that's correct. Is he the sole occupant? A silence long enough to measure. Sir, I'm not allowed to disclose. I cut her off, my voice breaking for the first time in 48 hours. Please, I'm not asking for a name. I just need to know if someone else lives there. Sympathy replaced protocol in her voice. Yes, he isn't listed as living alone. The world didn't fall apart. It simply stopped. I leaned back in the driver's seat, the phone slipping from my hand, landing somewhere on the floor. Secret apartment. Hidden tenant. $85,000 demand. Gambling debts. My son wasn't asking me to save Sarah's life. He was asking me to save his double life. And the worst part? He looked me dead in the eyes and decided I was stupid enough to fund it. I wiped my face with my sleeve. I hadn't even realized I was crying, and whispered aloud, You don't know it yet, Brandon, but I just stopped being your safety net. Because now I knew what I was fighting. Not ignorance, not desperation, not bad luck, entropy, greed, and deception refined into habit. This wasn't about $85,000 anymore. It was about a man who believed family was a resource, not a bond. And if he wanted a war, he'd get one. But not with fists, not with threats, not with raised voices. With truth, documentation, evidence, and silence. The kind of justice a liar can't scream his way out of. I turned the ignition, pulled out of the parking lot, and wrote 4 words into my notebook. Phase 2, exposure begins.